This is my friend's house, and she has asked me to give a major makeover to all 10 rooms in her house. This is going to be a huge undertaking and could quite possibly turn into a year-long whole home major renovation. The first room we are tackling is the boys' room on a $1,500 budget, which has to account for the makeover and all of the furnishings. This room is currently lacking in character and just plain boring. More importantly, it lacks the functionality that rapidly growing preteen boys desperately need, such as a desk for homework and personal space. So join me as I begin giving this boys' room a complete makeover and attempt to check all of their boxes while staying under budget. It's day one of our project, and of course, we are starting with a Lowe's trip. I'm grabbing some joint compound to age the brick panels, some dry decks to fill the holes on the wall, primer to cover some dark spots on the wall, and many other painting and paneling materials. I'm going to be needing 8 of these faux brick panels, and they won't fit in the back of my car, so we're going to send Michael back to pick them up. This is the first of many more Lowe's and Home Depot trips to come, but for now we have what we need, so we're off to Ashley's to get started. Okay, so we're going to get started with the boys' bedroom makeover, and we're going to go ahead and wipe everything down, get the dust off of everything, finish pulling off the window brackets for the window shades, then we'll be ready to paint and do the trim and the doors and give those a fresh coat as well. Then we'll be ready to move on to the panels. I started by removing all of the brackets for the blinds and was shocked to find an unbelievably long screw.
Look at this one. Oh my goodness. For that? What in the world? Oh my gosh.
I was like, it just keeps coming.
Right.
Paint prep is my least favorite part of any room makeover, but it's necessary to get clean lines and a professional finish. So I'll be removing outlet covers, light switches, and door hardware, so we'll have a nice clean slate to work with. But before we start painting, let me give you an idea of what we're planning to do. For the room design, I'll be doing a more masculine industrial modern feel, with a long list of wants and needs to incorporate into our very tight budget. By selling some larger priced items, they were able to increase our budget by another $1,225, giving us an overall budget of $2,725. So we're getting started by Ashley painting trim and doors, and I'm going to begin by rolling the walls and the ceiling. To keep ourselves entertained, we decided to play a little joke on Ashley's husband, Michael. So she knew he was on his way home, so she sent a text message telling him that Boomer had knocked over the paint can and it was all over the floor. We kept him in suspense until he walked through the door.
Mason!
Don't yell, he's outside, get him out.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Come here. Go tell Dad. Go tell Dad. Oh my gosh, Dad. There's paint mess everywhere from Boomer.
What? Yes. You guys messing with me? You. Oh man. You guys got me.
I was like, why don't I put Boomer outside so I can kill him?
I was like, reply already. Like, send me a picture or something. Like, how bad did I think of the book we couldn't get it off? I'm like, oh man. Holy crap.
After having a good laugh, it was time for a more serious discussion.
Shoot.
On another note, we might need a favor though.
Of course.
We thought that the excess paint that they had left over was going to be enough.
From our closet.
Chalk paint, because I mean, as you can see, like I'm going to have enough to do the one coat, but it's going to need 2 coats because this paint is like sucking it out.
Yeah, okay.
So we might need another. Actually,
I'll go run right now. So that one that they mix. It's just remix.
That's what they got it from. My guess is that they got it either from Ace or from, oh, that's Bear, that's Ace, I'm almost positive. No, Home Depot. Duh, look. I can't even see that they got it from Home Depot.
Does it say Home Depot? Oh, I can't even see.
The orange.
But the
That's what I said too.
Yeah, I'll be right back. Man, you got me.
Now that we have the paint situation sorted, I'm ready to pick my roller up and begin painting again. As I began rolling the ceiling with the next can of paint, I kept thinking how white the ceiling is looking. I thought it must be the way the light is reflecting of the angle of the ceiling, and that's why it looks different from the color on the wall. Then I noticed on this wall something that looks like the paint trying to drip back off the wall as though I hadn't rolled it. Then I knew something was obviously wrong, but I just was not sure what yet. Little did I know it was going to be a major problem. I'm wondering, did that wall get wiped with the duster?
Yes,
Okay.
it did.
All right. After a lot of talking, we still couldn't figure out exactly what was going on with the paint, so we decided to call it quits for the night and come back the next day with more energy and a fresh set of eyes. So to recap what happened yesterday, we had two main problems. The first was humidity and the second was paint color. The humidity was significantly higher than I had realized. I opened the windows to allow for ventilation because it was such a nice cool day. But of course, with the humidity as high as it was, the walls had condensation on them above the windows and I couldn't see it up that high before I had begun rolling. This caused the paint to begin sliding back off the wall. I then had to scrape all the paint back off and then allow for it to dry. As for the paint color, that was an unfortunate accident. Michael gave the paint can to the lady at Home Depot to color match. He walked around and came back to pick it up from the lady, and she handed him the paint can directly from the shelf without him never even knowing that it hadn't been mixed. So when I opened the paint can, I thought it looked really white, but we ran into this problem in the master bedroom a few weeks ago, and the extra paint looked white in the can, but when I tested it on the wall, it was clearly gray. I just assumed this was the same situation and it would dry gray, but man, was I wrong.
Woo, there we go. Now we're in business. Look at that.
When I started applying the correct paint, I was so relieved to see that all the prep work was worth it and that it was going according to plan. It is such a sigh of relief to finally see progress being made in this room. It was really feeling like we were taking 2 steps forward only to take 2 steps backward, or at least that's how it felt. But now that we are getting the paint and trim done, we are that much closer to the fun part of the makeover. I really love watching a room take shape right in front of my eyes, finally being able to see my vision unfold, confirming my color choices are the right fit for the room, and just being anxious to put all the pieces together. I will say at this point on day 2 of painting, my body was getting pretty sore, but I just kept thinking about the next phase of the process being so much fun, getting the brick panels up and seeing the look really come to life. Of course, we can't forget the details, like cleaning the fan and painting the vents. So we're just going to spray these vents so that they're just sort of back to new. This is an appliance epoxy enamel, and I've used it at my house quite a bit anytime I do a makeover. That way it just kind of gives it a fresh, clean look after, of course, it's already been washed. But especially in bathrooms and stuff, they have a tendency to get a little bit of rust and things like that. So it's just a good idea. If you're already up there, pull it down, clean it, and then just spray it, and then you don't have to worry about them rusting. After finally finishing up all of the painting, it was now time for one of my very favorite parts of the painting process. Is there anything more satisfying than pulling tape off your freshly painted wall, revealing perfectly clean lines, and the overwhelming satisfaction of yet another painting job well done? I love it. It's just like Christmas morning, opening a present and seeing that bright, shiny new object. So after 2 full days of hard work, a painting fiasco, and a few hard lessons learned, the painting in this room is finally finished, and I love how it turned out. But this is only the beginning, as it sets the stage for my favorite part of the project, the design. It's day 2 of the makeover, and we just wrapped up the last bit of prepping and painting before we could begin placing the panels on the wall. We sent Michael to Lowe's that morning to pick up the brick panels so we could get started that afternoon. Without wasting any time, we jumped right in and began cutting the panels to fit. I wanted to give this room a more industrial modern feel without a ton of decor, so these brick panels would be the main dynamic wow factor for this design. I measured the wall to see exactly where I would need to cut my opening for the outlet. Then I used the measurements to mark where I needed to make my cuts for the opening. At under $50 a panel, this is a very cost-effective way to create an accent wall for a fraction of the cost. I'm just using my drill to make holes in each corner of the measurements to create space for my jigsaw blade. The holes create a space in the corner which makes turning much easier. Now I'm just cutting out the small bricks on each side to make hiding the seam easier. You probably noticed that the first panel doesn't have the notches cut out. Well, I got a bit too antsy to get the panels on the wall, I think. I cut the hole for the electrical outlet and forgot to cut the side bricks, and by the time I noticed, I had already used my brad nailer to secure it to the wall, and of course I also used liquid nails underneath to help secure it, so I was really afraid I would mess up the wall if I tried to take it off at this point. So I left it. It caused me many problems later trying to hide that seam. Hindsight, I really wish I had thought to use my multi-tool to go back and cut them out while they were on the wall. Instead, we decided to try a different tactic this time.
Oh, you guys put this one on this side? I just realized that.
Because we didn't cut and I already had liquid nails on it.
Yeah.
We're learning lessons
As we go, yeah.
This was my first time installing brick panels. I watched many videos on tips and tricks and was very confident going into the install. I've never really been afraid of trying new things because anything can be fixed, but I had this nervous, anxious energy after the delay on day 1 of the painting fiasco. But I think it's important to be okay with making mistakes so we can grow and become more confident with time. The next step in the process was to add the joint compound to give the panels a more aged look. This is the first phase of creating an industrial modern look. Things began to get a bit hairy here as my battery died on my jigsaw, so I began switching back and forth between cutting the panels and spreading the joint compound on the panels to create a more realistic look. I'm applying 1 coat first, then I will begin creating the worn look during the second layer. But first, I will need this to set up and dry. Once this process is complete, I'll be able to go back and spot sand in sections to bring the brick tones back out. So finally, after a long, hard day of cutting and installing panels and covering them in joint compound, we called it a day to get some much-needed rest before we would start again the next day. But this time, we would begin on the opposite wall. Good morning! Of course, every morning for me is a good morning when it starts with a latte macchiato, but on this particular morning, it would require 2. I finished up a few tasks, then got in the car to get the day started. But they just opened a Starbucks at the entrance to her housing addition. And apparently, I'm weak because the temptation was too much and I turned around to get my second coffee of the morning. Okay, got my Starbucks. Now we're gonna go and get back and actually do the fun stuff, which is getting everything put back in the room and the bed put together and all the little decor, everything up on the walls. It'll be fun. I'm beginning this morning by applying my second coat of joint compound. This time I'm only applying it sporadically with a heavier coat to create a more industrial, modern feel. After finishing the second coat of joint compound on the wall, I was ready to move on to cutting the rest of the panels for the opposite wall. Ow! I realized that it was easier to make the 2 side cuts on the small bricks and just snap them off rather than trying to cut them out completely with the jigsaw. Now I'm just going to apply some liquid nails before we get ready to place this last panel up on the wall. With the last panel in place, I'm now using my drill to attach the brackets for the blinds. I really just needed a break from working on the wall, so I found a small task I could do quickly to mark off my checklist just to give me that productive boost I was craving. And now it's back to work on the wall. First, I'm filling the cracks with joint compound so that they have a chance to start drying. Next, I'm going over the whole wall with 1 coat of joint compound, applying it thicker in some spots and thinner in others, just to give it a more authentic look. With the wall completely covered, it's now time to hang the curtains. I'm starting by measuring where I need to place the brackets, and then just using my drill to attach them to the wall. With the brackets now in place, I'm just adding the rods. This is my first time installing rods for a bay window, but surprisingly it was pretty easy. And now for the best part of the day, hanging the curtains. This is the first decor piece to go into the room. Why am I hanging them now, you ask? Well, really just because I couldn't wait. I was so antsy to get something that was decorated in this room. It's actually so amazing to me every time I put panels up just how much they transform a space. I wanted to take the curtains all the way to the ceiling, but the panels were about 8 inches too short. They were the only length that was currently available to us. I just love these panels. Even with nothing else in the room, they have a huge impact already. It really softens the space and brings the color in. And last, we're just going to give these blinds a quick wipe down. Then we'll move on to a quick tidy up just to get the floors and all of the extra debris cleaned up, and then we're going to call it a night so we can get some rest. Just kidding. We were all so excited to see the room come together, we decided to move on to furniture. Michael had already assembled the coffee table while we were working on the curtain, so now we are moving on to one of the beds. I found these beds on Amazon and I loved the muted navy color and the linen fabric. They also had a nice modern look. We paid $261 per bed and $93 per mattress, which was a great deal. The idea for these beds is that they will double as gaming couches with plenty of seating. The coffee table folds open to a large desktop, so each boy will be able to sit at their beds and do their homework as well. And finally, at 3 a.m., we were finished assembling the bed and decided to call it a night. It was a very long day, but we were all so excited to see how much progress we had made. It's now the next morning. Well, technically, it's only a few hours later because we stayed up till 3 a.m. But we were super motivated to finish this wall up today. So I began starting by painting the wall immediately so it would have time to dry, because we still needed to put the other bed together inside the room. I went with a matte black for this wall because I felt like not only did it fit the industrial modern look, but it also gave a feeling of individuality to each one of the boys' sides. Now I'm just going in with my paintbrush and cleaning these lines up a little bit. Believe it or not, there really wasn't much to touch up. After finishing up the black paint, I gave this wall a quick whitewash, just to take away the pink hue that was coming through. Later I will go back with sandpaper and bring out the brick tones, just to give it a bit more of an industrial feel. Now it's time for these LEDs to be put on the bottom of the bed. Color changing lights were something the boys requested, but I sort of took the idea and ran with it. I added LED lights underneath the bed, the coffee table, and also behind the TV. I found this TV stand that also has built-in lighting, so basically their entire room is going to be backlit with any color they choose. It's going to be so cool. I am so excited for them to see it. I just ran these LED lights all alongside the bottom of their bed, and since they're adhesive back, they were really easy to do and held on well. These will not only make a really cool feature in the room, but can be used as night lights as well. It's the end of day 4, and we've just finished up the last of the painting on the panels and are midway through building the furniture pieces. We did incorporate a few additional pieces which increased our overall cost as well as going over budget in a few areas. We sold the dresser to have more available space in the room because they had a ton of unused space in their closet. So I decided to reconfigure and organize the closet and make room for a taller dresser and storage tub for shoes. This frees up a lot of space for our design. Sometimes I like to play with the designs on a much smaller scale to test out the design. So I created a 3D render out of cookie. I've always enjoyed creating things with my own 2 hands. I love the feeling of accomplishment after creating a project and feeling like, wow, I made that. I've learned to be creative with many different mediums, but for the last 20 years, my medium of choice has been icing in all its forms. My canvas is usually a cake, but sometimes it's a cookie. I love to be challenged and to test my abilities, so while I was creating mood boards for my upcoming projects, I was thinking about how designers oftentimes create virtual renders for clients to see ahead of time. Then I thought, hey, I should do that. I knew a cake would be a rather large project, so a cookie seemed a perfect fit for this one. While I've never really tried to recreate a room with a cookie, this is actually the way most of my cake and cookie designs start. Every order is custom and must be scaled to the right size to feed the correct number of people. In this case, I don't need to feed anyone, but I do want to try and make it to the correct dimensions. So I needed to find a simple way to make a template. Turns out it's pretty easy. I just used graph paper and made a map of my room dimensions. 1 foot simply equaled 1 square. I already had the dimensions of each furniture piece, so it was a fairly straightforward process. So when my friend asked me to make over her house room by room, I was eager to immediately begin making mood boards and applying my skill set to yet another medium. We were making great progress on assembling all of the furniture, so we made it our goal to finish everything by the end of the day. So Michael got to work on the TV stand while I was assembling some of the smaller decor items. We upgraded the TV to a much larger one for gaming, and then mounted it to the TV stand. Then all that was left was to move it into place. Now we just had one last bed to assemble. Once it was completed, I added the LED lights to the bottom of the bed, slid the bed back in place, moved the coffee table back to its rightful position, did a quick little tidy up of the table. Now it was time to slide that mattress in place and we were done. With all the furniture pieces in place, I was ready to hang the sconces. It was already 11:30 at night and we were tired, but I just had to finish this last task. So I began by getting my measurements and marking on the wall where I would need to attach the supports. Then I just attached the sconces to the wall with the accent screws and we were finally done for the night. It's day 5 and it's a Sunday afternoon. We only have one task to do today, and that's staining the letters for the boys' names. Once the letters are stained, they will require dry time, so we will resume the next day and enjoy the remainder of this Sunday with our families. It's the start of day 6 and I got straight to work. I began by measuring out the center of the space between the sconces, as this would also be the center of the bed. Then I started hanging the names by using my bride nailer. I found the easiest way to make sure the names were straight was to use my carpenter's square with the level. I was pretty sure the brick lines were level, but I didn't want to rely on them. Thankfully, everything ended up lining up correctly. I dare say I do dodged a bullet there because that could have gone really wrong. Attaching the names to the wall was the last task before adding the finishing touches. We wanted these beds to function as couches during the day, so it was important to have durable pillows to act as couch backs. They can easily be wiped clean and plopped back in place. Since there was no real way to match the navy on the beds, we opted to go with the silver gray fitted sheet that matched the walls and a camel faux leather on the pillows to pull in some warmth and make it feel a bit more masculine. Now that we had the room clean and dust-free again, we began to reconfigure the closet layout. There wasn't really anything wrong with the closet, it just wasn't being utilized to its full potential. Most of their clothes were stored in the dresser. So, getting rid of the dresser was a huge problem that had to be resolved immediately. I managed to find a tall replacement for the dresser that would fit perfectly in the unused space in the closet. This dresser was just under $100 on Amazon. While it did increase our overall cost, it was an extremely functional and necessary purchase. And as a bonus, they have more drawer space than they had before. We planned on adding multiple storage tubs to the top of the closet to maximize the ability to organize all their belongings. But with so much extra storage space in the dresser, we just didn't need to add them at this time. They will have the ability to change things up as the need arises. For example, at some point they may need to add floor shoe storage so they can utilize the bottom hanging rack. By keeping the design simple and utilizing some of the storage options they already had available, we left a lot of room for flexibility as the years pass. But for now, this shoe storage tub works great and keeps all their shoes off the floor, making the space look much more tidy with enough extra room to tuck other things away if needed. After 9 long days, this room makeover is finally complete and the time has come to reveal it to 2 very eager boys. And I absolutely cannot wait to see their reaction. So you have lights under your bed. You have lights under here. And then you have lights behind your TV. And you have lights down here. So everything is lit up and everything can be changed. The colors, you have remotes for your own sides. You can turn your light on now if you want so you can see it better. Yep, that's your new TV. What do you guys think?
So cool. I love it. I like the Beckett part.
So you want me to show you how your stuff works?
Sure.
Okay.